Tigers! Hello, welcome back to the Jean Made channel. My name is Paula Jean. This is where I share about some of the stuff that I make. And I am willing to bet my last hope of $1 that some or most or many of you can resonate with this scenario. You see a fabric, it makes your heart go all pitter patter, and you want so desperately to buy some of it, but you have no idea what you're going to make. So you practice restraint and you don't buy it, and then it ends up going on super sale, and it's like a sign from the universe that you are supposed to have this in your stash. So you buy it. Well, enter these fabulous rayon challis tigers that I got from the fabric store, the one in New Zealand, not the one in California that specializes in linen, different shop. So the fabric store in New Zealand has wonderful fabrics, and it's not like I have a lot of fabrics from them or anything. I bought some denim from them many years ago, and it's the denim that I use to make my overalls and my lander jeans, and those are two of my most worn garments. I wear them all year long and they still look amazing. So that was my introduction to them and the quality of their fabric. I also know one of their ambassadors, and I'm just always so impressed with all of the stuff that she makes from the fabric that she gets from them. So I am on their email list, and a couple of times a year they have really great sales, like 40 to 60% off. So I had eyed this fabric one of the times that I had just gone on the website and was just kind of dreaming about some things. This was, I think, in 2022 or somewhere around there. And at the end of that year, this fabric went on one of those super sales. So I took advantage and I bought 4 meters of it. The fabric is so, I mean, it's a rayon challis and you know, which is not a rare fabric or anything like that. But this one is just so silky. Like it actually feels like it's got silk in it. I don't know if it's the weave, maybe it's really tight and it just makes it really smooth, but it's just really, really next level quality. And also the printing, like the registration and the saturation of the colors is just gorgeous. On top of that, it is so rare for me to find a print that I absolutely fall in love with that happens to have all colors that are in my color palette. So that just made this another unique fabric that just felt like it was made just for me. I also love a good animal print, and you know, my Sun and Mercury and Mars and Venus are all in Leo, and so sometimes I just have to embrace that big cat energy or I will implode. So the one concern that I've had with this fabric is the white background. Obviously it was not enough to keep me from buying it, but I always knew that I wanted something kind of big and fabulous made from this, whether that was like a top with big sleeves with some matching pants, or maybe like a wrap dress or something like that. But every time I pictured something in my head, it was like, is that going to look like a bathrobe? Is it going to look like pajamas? Not that there's anything wrong with having luxurious pajamas, all for it, but I really wanted to make something that I would feel comfortable wearing out in the world so I could just show this off. So I have always leaned toward kind of a caftan style garment, and caftans have been having a bit of a moment in the sewing world and in the pattern world. There's been a few that have come out in the last few years, and there's lots of vintage patterns for caftans. I myself have made the Charlie caftan from Closet Core Patterns, and I love that thing to death. I wear it all the time in the summer, especially when it's like up over 100 degrees. It is my go-to garment. So I had thought of making another Charlie caftan, but I also kind of wanted something that was a bit of a different silhouette, and I just wasn't seeing it out there. And then, so dramatic, I know, then Laure Piar, a couple of months ago, started teasing on her Instagram the new pattern that she was developing. And when I tell you that I was stalking her account for when she put out a tester call, I am not being hyperbolic in the least. So finally, a few weeks ago, she put out the tester call. I must have been one of the first people who applied. I got onto the testing team, and as I am recording right now, we are about 2/3 of the way through the testing process. So I have made my muslins, I've given my feedback, the other testers have given feedback, and Laure has let us know what things she's going to be incorporating into the final pattern. So I have incorporated those, and I feel really confident about heading into making my final garment with my tigers. So a little bit about the pattern. It is called the Cara Tunic Dress and Top, and it is a very roomy garment. It comes in a dress and a blouse version, and it's got these big voluminous sleeves that have gathered cuffs. It can either gather at the wrist with an adjustable drawstring, or they can be gathered permanently and then have an extension of a cuff on it. The dress version has a center front slit, and the neckline is this beautiful, very narrow V neckline that has this lovely crossover construction in the back. Very, very cool. And the shaping of it comes from these two ties that are attached in the front. Where you attach them can kind of affect the fit and how you can style it. So they're attached at kind of the side front, maybe like just above your hip bones at your waist level. And you have the option of bringing them to the front and then wrapping the ties around, and that creates two long pleats down the side of the front. And you can also tie them around in the back if you want the front look to just be smooth. You can also adjust the ties a little bit to accommodate a fuller bust. That's what I did. I lowered the ties a little bit to do kind of a fake full bust adjustment. So that's another thing that can be done. The dress version is a bit of a fabric hog. It does take 4-ish meters of fabric depending on your size and the length that you need to adjust it to. But that kind of serves my purposes with this fabric really well because, you know, this is a big, bold print, and I would love to probably just have one fabulous garment in it and not make several. So I don't want a whole lot of leftover fabric of this. And because this is a directional print, it means I'm going to have to lay this out on a single layer and put all of my pattern pieces in the same direction. So I don't have room for that in my sewing room. So I'm going to have to put all of my cutting mats together on the floor in my living and dining area and cut it like that. Also, this is quite slinky, so it's going to be a little bit finicky to cut out, but I think it's going to be worth it. Whenever I'm cutting out really large pieces, particularly on slinky fabric, my most useful pattern weights are all of my longest rulers. I particularly love my long metal yardstick. I find these much more helpful for getting really precise cutting than having a bunch of smaller pattern weights distributed around the pieces. I can put pressure on those rulers, and it really just helps keep everything in place. It looks like I have much more of this fabric left over than I was planning. I'm also adding some contrast elements with this navy blue challis that looks suspiciously like the jumpsuit that I'm wearing, and I'm going to explain those to you right now. All right, so I am putting things together, and this is not a sew-along. I'm sure Laura is going to do a sew-along once she releases the pattern, but I wanted to explain to you a couple of changes that I am making to the pattern. So one of them is the cuffs. I am putting cuffs on my dress, and in the instructions, they are closed with ties. So you take the cuff and you insert a tie at each end of the upper cuff like this, and the closure is you tying the ties together. I was a little bit concerned about the functionality of that for my everyday life. So while I love the look and the drama of the ties, I wanted the option to have something else. So what I did was I found a little piece of matching navy fold-over elastic in my stash. I fortified it with some 1/4-inch swim elastic, and so I've inserted that at the same point that it says to insert one of the ties. And then I've left on the other side a little opening so that when I attach it to the sleeve after the sleeve has been gathered, I can then just insert the elastic into that little space and then hand stitch it closed. And it doesn't give me a full elastic sleeve. That's not what I'm going for. It's just going to give me a little bit of give so that when I pull my sleeve up, like just, a little ways up my forearm, it's gonna stay. And I think it's just gonna make it a little bit more versatile. And then if I want the drama of the ties, I can just tie the tie around that little piece of elastic and have that effect when I want it. The other thing that I'm doing is I am adding a contrast band to the neck and the center front. So I want to show you on the instructions how the dress is supposed to be constructed and then kind of explain my way of adding this contrast band. I am sure that there are ways to do this that are easier, simpler, more efficient. This is just what came to me when I was thinking of this idea. So if you watch this and say like, oh, well, why didn't you just do this? Maybe just leave that idea in the comments. So yeah, so I'm gonna take you now through the neckband and see if I can make it make sense. All right, so these are the instructions for the front part of the Cara tunic dress. So what you're seeing here is the front represented at the wrong side. So you have this piece and this red line, get that a little bigger so you can see it. So the red line here is both a fold line and a stitching line. So once you finish the edges of the front piece with either an overlocker or by turning it over by 1/4 of an inch, you sew the two front pieces right sides together between this little neck notch. This is basically the bottom of the V-neck, and just where this notch is, which below that is the slit that happens. And then just get to the next page here. So then what happens is once those two are sewn together, you open up the garment and then you fold over and steam those what become cut on facings, and you stitch down with an edge stitch the facing. So on the right side of the garment, you end up with a stitching line that kind of outlines that. So now I'll show you how I've added a contrast band.
To make the pattern piece, I just folded that innermost edge along the fold line, and then I drew a line all the way down the length of the garment. I then took another piece of paper and traced around the perimeter and used a tracing wheel to trace along the line that I drew. And this is the full piece.
So this is such a big piece, it's hard to show you, but this is basically the top part of what I just showed you. This is the top of the front bodice. The sleeve attaches here, and the cut on facing does this, and this becomes part of the neckline, and then this upper part is what ends up folding around and crossing over and creating the back. That's a different step. But what I'm doing to add a contrast to it is with that extra pattern piece that I showed you, I'm sewing this right sides together to finish this front edge. And I've actually already done one side of it. So this is the other side of the front bodice. I've attached my facing piece here. And now when I stitch down the center front between those notches, I'm going to do it wrong sides together so that when I press it open along that fold line, it does this. And this edge is finished. So I'm just going to top stitch that down. And then this part that becomes the neckline, I can still construct it in the same way. And that's how I get that contrast band. So just a little sneak peek of how this construction turned out. I'm really happy with it. So that's the top stitching down both sides, and the seam allowance I used here to attach this piece was 3/8 of an inch. So on the other side I only turned it over by 1/4 to make sure my top stitching was going to catch the underside, and that worked out really great. And let me just show you this really cool neck construction here. Just turn it around to get it in the light. So those 2 points that I was talking about, they overlap here and here to create this really nice crossover, very comfortable back neckline. So I thought that was kind of cool. My dears, I believe what I have created here is my audition outfit for season 4 of The White Lotus. And if you're going to tell me that Jennifer Coolidge's character from seasons 1 and 2 doesn't need a long-lost sister to come back and avenge her death, then I tell you, hold my cocktail. I really, really love how this turned out. And I know that some of you are looking at it and saying, yeah, that looks like a bathrobe, but it is the fiercest robe style garment that I have ever had. And it feels completely appropriate to wear fancy sparkly earrings with it. So I don't know, maybe I just needed a fancy robe to make me feel glamorous. Now, I had said that you can tie this in the front or the back, but actually there's a third way that you can wear it, which is to just tie the ties in the front without wrapping them around the waist. And it gives you this lovely kind of soft, almost cocoonish style silhouette that is a little bit reminiscent of Japanese design, but it's not culturally inappropriate. So that's kind of a nice bonus. And I'm very pleased with how the cuffs turned out, and it's really, really easy to take those ties off or to put them back on at any point. So I'm very happy with how that turned out as well. I'm glad that I also did that contrast band along the bottom. I think it really frames everything very nicely and kind of contains the tigers a little bit and grounds it a little. I know that Laura is working on a couple of hacks to provide with the pattern, and one of them is going to be an open robe, and I think the other one is going to be like a winter coat. So once she has the pattern up on her website, I will link that down below. We're just a few days before the launch date as I'm filming this, but I will leave that for you, and when she does a sew along, I'll come back and add that to the description box as well. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy this kind of content or you know somebody who might, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Helps the channel get out into more of the universe. I hope you are taking fantastic care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.